Güey, Roms, ¿alguna vez te imaginaste que íbamos a entrevistar un par de tenis, güey?
¿Ya llegamos a ese punto?
Ya llegamos a ese punto.
Ok, bienvenidos a No Hype.
¿Qué tal? ¿Qué tal, cabrón? ¿Alguna vez te imaginaste que íbamos a tener esta oportunidad?
Jamás.
Ajá, sí.
Con una leyenda.
Una leyenda del tenis y no solamente uno de esos carnales que cambió por completo el juego, güey.
Una persona que además de que fue importante para el deporte, y creo que mucha gente se le olvida, de ahí la famosa frase de, pues, no soy un par de tenis, o la gente piensa que soy un par de tenis.
Ajá.
Entonces, siento que es como muy importante también encontrar su punto de vista de otras cosas fuera de lo que corresponde a solo el par de tenis, ¿no? Hablar un poquito como su carrera deportiva, como pues de cómo vive también este mundo en el que él literal pues es la referencia o la primera referencia que tenemos ante un clásico de los sneakers, ¿no?
Y es que hay que hablar de una cosa muy importante. A pesar de que el básquetbol y el tenis son totalmente lados contrarios del espectro deportivo, no hay dos deportes que cambien tanto y al mismo tiempo dicten tantas como modas en todo lo que tiene que ver el street style, güey.
Sí, que justamente eso, ¿no? La gente también a veces no se acuerda que el tenis tiene mucha influencia. Muchísima.
Sí, muchísimo.
¿No? O sea, para nosotros ahorita hablamos de skateboarding, el básquetbol siempre ha estado presente, incluso el soccer, pero el tenis es de esos deportes que a lo mejor, tal vez porque en México no se consume tanto, pero que es muy importante para la cultura.
Todo, absolutamente todo. Desde las calcetas que utilizaban, los tenis blancos, las faldas, los shorts, los suéteres, el cuello polo. Creo que todo eso tiene que ver con el deporte y sin darnos cuenta ha llevado muchísimo más allá los elementos de quien las porta. Por eso es que Stan Smith, cuando dices Stan Smith, te imaginas un par de zapatos, güey.
Sí, no al invitado que tenemos.
Ajá, no al invitado que tenemos el día de hoy. There you go. And I was just telling him, you can still find them in the street. I was just walking from the subway to here. Yeah. It's like a 3-block radius, and I found at least 2 pairs of those.
I like that.
Well,
so, are those new?
These are new, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
I got these yesterday just for Mexico.
Do you have one pair per day, or how many?
I have a lot of shoes, but I wear a lot of different kinds, but I wear my shoe most of the time now.
Come on, if you have a shoe, you have to wear your shoe.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I would do it.
What other way is there? Yeah. I mean, Mr. Stan Smith, for people out there that don't know you, could you briefly introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Stan Smith, and I was pretty well known as a tennis player, but now, the shoe is really the thing that most people know my name by.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
The man, the legend, the shoe.
The man, the legend, the shoe. Very well put.
That's good. That would be a good name for a book.
I don't think you could top People Think That I'm a Shoe.
That was a pretty good title.
That's the best title ever. Sir, you've had a really long history in sport. What inspired you to pick up a racket and start playing tennis?
Well, I was, my brother, 2 brothers, played a little tennis, and my father was a coach, but he didn't really coach, specifically tennis. He was at a city college in Pasadena, and he just coached a lot of different sports. But a group of parents in my area formed a foundation, and then they hired Pancho Segura, who happens to be maybe the best coach ever. He worked with Connors and with Chang and with Higueras, all sorts of good players. And he worked with us every Saturday at Pasadena High School on these high school courts with hard wire nets. I mean, it wasn't the country club thing, but that was really what got me going. And then the Southern California Tennis Association really got behind the players in Southern California. And they helped send me to the national championships in the East Coast. And then I went to college. I had a great college coach named George Tolley. And he actually worked with a lot of Mexican players during the summertime. And he gave scholarships to some players like Rafael Osuna, who was older than me, but he won the U.S. national championships before he became the U.S. Open. And then I lost to him at Wimbledon my first time. And he went to USC, and he won the Wimbledon doubles with Dennis Ralston, who also went to USC. So the coach there had a connection with Mexican players just below San Diego.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You started very young. It was a young career for you. You win Wimbledon and you win the US Open. But before you, and maybe a lot of people don't remember this, but there was Robert Hamlet, right? Robert Hamlet was the first one with that shoe. How does it feel to, or what was the approach of Adidas when they come to you and say, hey, we want to expand our business into the US. Yeah. We want to give you this offer, but you have to use the Robert Hamlet shoes.
Yeah, Adidas is a great brand, and it's always been a great brand. And so it was a real honor for them to come up to me and say, we'd like to do something with you. And so they wanted to put my face on the tongue, and they're looking for a good-looking face, but they ended up with me. But they had my face and Haye on the side. And have you seen the shoes with the face and the Haye? Yeah, they're very history. But so for about 4 or 5 years, we had both Haye and Smith on the shoe, and then finally his name left. But he was a great tennis player. He was the #1 player in France for several years, and he turned pro. And he actually helped Horst Dassler, Adi Dassler's son, design the first leather tennis shoes. That's what those were. Mm-hmm. So it was a privilege to be wearing the first leather tennis shoe, as well as being with Adidas. And so it was one of those great opportunities for me.
Okay. Could you tell us, for people that don't really know about technology in shoes, what's the difference of making one that's leather, like playing in a leather shoe?
Yeah, before that we wore canvas shoes. Mm-hmm. And ironically, Adidas is making some canvas shoes now that are with my name on it. But the canvas shoes were not very strong. Mm-hmm. They wore out very quickly. They didn't give you much support. They didn't look great after a little while. And the leather shoes were high tech. Okay. My shoes were really high tech. Now they're kind of low tech as far as leather shoes are concerned. I mean, look at all the bells and whistles.
I know. Just
check them out. For the tennis players today, they have more support and they better going laterally, the sides and forwards, and they're just better to play tennis in. Mm-hmm. But at the time, these were the best shoes to play tennis in.
Yes.
And in fact, I have a story about my niece who's in London, and she was wearing the shoes for PE, and the teacher said, "You can't wear the shoes for PE." She said, "Why?" Because they're fashion shoes. And she said, "Well, my uncle won Wimbledon wearing those shoes," and so she was allowed to wear them.
That's a great flex. That's a really great flex. And just imagine being able to say that. Do you think that, like I was telling Roman before the show, out of all the sports, basketball and tennis, although they're a completely different spectrum in sports, they're the ones that really have put a bunch of staples in how fashion, streetwear, and people dress right now. What do you think that is? I mean, tennis is a really, really old sport, and even so, people still keep on dressing like if they would go to a tennis match.
Yes, well, my shoe really it transformed from a performance shoe to a fashion shoe, and I think the fact that they're very simple and literally they haven't changed very much in 60 years. But this loop is something I suggested, that you keep the tongue from moving, and then having a little bit higher here to support the Achilles tendon. Otherwise, it's the same shoe that was created in 1965 by Haye. And so I think that people, wear tennis shoes and they go shopping and they go stores and go to have food and then the basketball fans, you see Michael Jordan and all these great basketball players, and sometimes they get jerseys with their names on it, but they kind of gravitate towards, since almost everybody's wearing tennis shoes now.
Yes.
Or, or running shoes, whatever you want to call them, casual shoes. And so they're saying, well, we could wear these basketball shoes. Although not many women are wearing, let's say the Michael Jordan shoe, although I guess they are now, but it's two big sports that are very popular and that gravitate towards, kind of a lifestyle.
Yeah, and simplicity. Because tennis is not. Mexico is not really a big tennis country, but I mean, people understand the simplicity and cleanness of the shoe, and that's why absolutely everyone has a pair of Stan Smiths inside their closet.
Well, they should.
No, they do, really.
It's ironic that Raul Ramirez, who has been one of the best tennis players out of Mexico, I think he was one of the first guys I lost to when he was wearing my shoe. It was very disappointing.
When was the last time that you see someone at a professional level using your shoes?
Not any of them are doing that now because they have, better shoes to play in, better performance shoes that protect your feet and allow you to move better and that sort of thing. So we had I remember a kid came up to me and said, I'm signing with Adidas. I'd like to wear your shoe. And I said, you got better shoes. Adidas makes better shoes than my shoes, so you should try some of those.
There was a model called Adidas Stan Smith Millennium.
Yes.
Yeah, and a really nice shoe. Google it. But other than that, at some point, there was a project involving your name and a new performance shoe?
Well, they've tried to make it a little bit better for performance. The Millennium shoe, I started wearing that, to play tennis because it gave you a little, support on the bottom, and that was good. But we haven't really gone after doing more of a performance shoe because the shoe really is a fashion shoe now.
Okay, in today's market, designing a shoe sometimes feels like a bigger merit than having a big, enormous career. And I mean, you have both. You have a big career and you have a design, like a title to your name, your own shoe. What, if anything, calls you from right now that you see out of all the, I think you've been to a whole bunch of stores and seen what people have on their feet. Is there anything that kind of, calls you out? Like, I'd like to wear that, or I like this, or I like that?
Well, there's been every company now has shoes, white tennis shoes, and a lot of them look a lot like mine. In fact, Skechers made one that looked like mine.
Yes.
So much that Adidas sued Skechers, and they even had it online in the Skechers, website. This is the Stan Smith model of the Skechers, and so they won the suit against Skechers. And my friend Roger Federer has got a shoe that the On shoe that I looked at it the first time. I thought it was my shoe, and it looks a lot like my shoe. So. Like I say, every company has a shoe that looks a lot like mine. And I guess it's a form of flattery, but it does annoy me sometimes when they look so much like it.
Because that happened from Skechers to Alexander McQueen, right? You now see this Alexander McQueen that it's very look-alike the Stan Smith, but with a bolder sole and all that stuff. And it's interesting because how a design from the 70s is so actual today, right? I think that's the point of why you are not just a Hall of Famer in tennis, but also in shoes, right? We can, maybe people don't realize that the Stan Smith, it's maybe top 5 silhouettes of the history because of what it represents, not just at that moment, but today.
Yeah, it's fun to see. Well, the great thing about it is it's, like I said, it's simple, but then men and women, boys and girls, older people, so it's a big marketplace, and it's, like we've been talking about, a lot of people don't know that I played tennis, but they know my name, and it's because of the shoes, so it's interesting to see that, you know, like, I'll guarantee you, in another 10 years, people will know that Michael Jordan played basketball.
Yeah.
Or, you know, Bjorn Borg, or, you know, anybody. You know, of course, there's the Chuck Taylor. Do you know who Chuck Taylor was?
Yes, I do, but people don't.
Most people don't.
Most
He was a
people
basketball player, basketball coach, and but 99.9% of the people in the world have no idea who Chuck Taylor was. That was the first named shoe, I think, of all shoes.
Mr. Smith, do you, with great shoes, I mean, at least as a kid, once you put on something that you really feel, you know, makes a good sneaker can make you feel powerful. Did you ever wear your own shoes and get a big win a championship, something like that? Or did you ever lace them up and go outside the court and feel like, I can win anything with this?
Well, I felt pretty good with the shoes. You know, I won U.S. Open and Wimbledon. I wore the shoes a little bit before my name was on it. So I felt very comfortable, you know, wearing them. And at that time, they were the most high-tech shoe out there. And so it, you know, I always felt good about wearing those shoes. Although one time I was playing, it was really hot, and everything, my socks got wet, my shoes got wet, the water was spurting out of these holes here. And also they got heavy, you know, they got heavy when they got totally wet.
Yes.
The leather got heavy, so it wasn't the ideal shoe, but today's shoes probably the same way. You know, they got more design, you know, elements in the shoe now that make them even more.
There's always these stories when someone has a shoe or it's a collaborator with a brand that, you know, there's an special edition that maybe the person didn't even know, and someone outside, maybe something from the family, a friend says, "Hey, Stan, can you get me this shoe?" And you say like, "What? I don't even have it." Do you have some stories like that?
Well, one thing about the shoe is that it's like a canvas.
Yes.
And so artists have painted on them, and they've done like auctions. You know, like Kate Moss did an auction, and she had her friends, celebrity friends, design something on the shoe. Then she auctioned them off, and that was great. I have a pair of shoes that a woman made for me, and she had read my book. You know that, and it has all these references to, you know, Adidas. USC, the Wilson racket, quotes that I have from the book, and she made a pair of shoes with really nice paint, you know, that didn't flake off, and those might be my favorite shoes that I have that are pretty neat. Then I had some designed in May, just this year, in Paris, in the Champs-Élysées store, and they have 7 artists there that will paint anything that you want on the shoe. And I got those shoes. I had 3 black stripes going this way with orange and red and kind of like a fire sort of thing, and they're pretty cool.
Do you think that over time you've gotten to really love your shoe even more so than you did when you first signed with Adidas?
Yeah, you know, in a way I have, because, you know, before I considered them my work shoes for about 20 years. And then after that, you know, I started wearing them like a lot of other people in fashion, and my favorite thing is to see, you know, I've been to some formal things with, you know, black tuxedos, and wearing these white shoes with black tuxedos really look sharp. But you can wear them with everything, so but in a way, you know, there's been so many different varieties of the shoes made. Yes. And now they're making some shoes that with a little thicker sole, you know, make it a little higher. That's a popular shoe now, popular style with young people particularly. It's a little thicker sole. They even have one called the Mule, which is like you use a slip-on shoe, which is pretty unusual. And they have now some with leather, with canvas, and it feels like suede. And my favorite one of my favorite shoes are a blue suede shoe that I got about 25 years ago. That it's blue, that has red on the back, and that's pretty cool.
Do you consider yourself a collector of sneakers?
Well, I've become a little bit more of a collector than before, because I really didn't collect them before. But I have a good friend who's a CEO of a big company, and his biggest fault is he's a collector. And he didn't collect, Maseratis or Ferraris, but he collected my shoes, size 11, and he's got over 400 pairs. And he actually sends me some shoes. In fact, he sent me some shoes from a man who worked for Adidas in Landesheim, which is where Horst Dassler worked at the beginning. He left Germany and worked in France, and that's where he met Robert Hayet, and they designed the shoe. Well, this guy had half a dozen or a dozen more shoes left over, size 14 actually, or 13, and it was around between 72 and 76 when it had the Hayet name on it, my picture, and Hayet on here as well. So it's the earliest. They're brand new box, and it's probably my treasured shoe because it was from the very beginning. And I wish I had known that they'd be around 50 years later. I would have kept the first pair that I wore.
Of course.
But I didn't. So this pair represents that time.
There was a point, especially in 2011 to 2014, where Adidas decided to take off the market the shoe. Other than that, previous to that, there was a point where Adidas said, "Hey, Stan, we will not sell your shoes anymore." Do you have been afraid of that happen at some point?
I've always been afraid of it. The very first time I signed a 5-year contract, I figured at 5 years, it'd be finished. Then another 6 years, and then another 10 years, and then. So I always thought at the end of those contracts, because it's a trend shoe now. It's not, it's not a shoe that people have to wear. It's a trend, so people may try something else. And in 2011, we had a meeting at Wimbledon, and they said, okay, we're going to take it off the market for 2 years. And we walked out of the meeting thinking that was it. 40 years, it's done. And then they've been the genius in marketing has been terrific, and they've done a lot with collaborations. And so I collaborated with Pharrell Williams, and recently Stella McCartney, and before that was Raf Simons. He had the same shoe with an R on it, and so those are things they've done. But when they relaunched the shoe 2 years later, they gave shoes to the influencers, probably to guys like you.
Thank you.
And they put their picture on the shoe.
On the shoe, yeah.
So it'd be your picture on the shoe here, and then they had it in a nice box and a little card about the history, and it was, and they just asked them to put it on their social media. And it went crazy. That was the first thing they did. And they did other, collaborations with other people, and they did some really cool marketing things, and it really took off then.
Does it ever surprise you? I mean, very few things stand a test of time like that. And do you ever go like, wow, I can't believe people still wear my shoe?
Every day. Every day I'm surprised that that it's there, and it's hanging in there, and they're doing some new features and new styles and new colors, and so it's been fun. But you never know. At the end of this year, that might lose its its interest, and it might go away. But
you really think so? I think that timeless pieces can never.
I think it's gone past. It's a tipping point. I think it's gone past where it's going to go out. I think it's going to be around, and but over the years it's been like this, and But it's fun to see. I love to see a daughter and a mother, or the daughter and a father, or a son and father wearing the same shoes. Because most women, girls would not be caught dead wearing what their mother wears.
Yeah.
No, it's not cool.
No, it's not. Definitely not.
But I see that quite a bit actually with my shoe.
And I think it's funny, right? Because, for example, the standards made for babies is not so old. It's more recently those shoes, right?
Yeah, that's my favorite gift. You know, to give these little baby shoes for newborns that are literally this big. You can put them in a plastic cube. I'll sign to that, you know, to baby X, you know, and it's really fun to see that.
After your first solo shoe, was there ever a time you said, you know what, I want to change this. I need to change this.
Well, I've always liked seeing different colors. I love the suede. And so I like the idea of going to suede and then different colors of suede. And, you know, and Pharrell Williams, he did that Audi Color promotion with all the different colors. And I thought that was cool because why should it just be white? But it always comes back to the one that's the best seller that you can wear with anything. And it's really the, you know, in some countries like France particularly and Japan, in England, actually it's popular in a lot of countries. And so it's fun to see, you know, people wearing it and they have no idea who I am.
When did you realize that the shoe will be greater, or your name in the shoe will be greater than your name in the Hall of Fame of tennis, for example?
You know, it's probably 30 years, 20 years ago, something like that. It's, you know, think about it, because if you were 50 or lower, maybe 60 and lower, you probably never see me play. You didn't see me play, did you?
No.
So nobody here had seen me play, so they wouldn't, unless they were a student of the game, studied the history of tennis, then they wouldn't know that, you know, that I was a tennis player. And I realized that pretty early. Jack Kramer, do you know Jack Kramer?
No, I don't.
Jack Kramer had the most popular racket ever made, and he was the father of professional tennis, and he himself could be one of the best players ever to play the game. He won Wimbledon, he won the US Open, and then he turned pro very early and then established the pro circuit. He told me one time, he said, you know, that these guys at these companies, that they're new, they come in and they're bean counters, you know, they're looking at just at the numbers, and they don't appreciate the history of that. And so I realized very early that people aren't going to know, you know, who I am necessarily.
My last question would be, which of both of those legacies are you most proud of? Because I mean, your name on a shoe that's being worn and will probably be worn forever until we start to levitate or something like that, and or your tennis career. They're both super important. They're both completely different.
You know, I was #1 in the world as a tennis player. There's only one person that's done that. I mean, there's a lot of us that have done it, but at that one time, and I worked really hard for that. And I've worked hard in helping, you know, promote and make some changes with a shoe, and it's got this longevity. But to be #1 in the world and win Wimbledon and Davis Cup and that sort of thing was part of my dreams. I didn't have dreams of having a shoe 50 years later. And so I've been very fortunate to be, you know, in this situation. But you know, winning and doing well as a player was something I really worked hard at.
Last question. Are you impressed of talking about Mexico City? Maybe it's not your first time, but are you impressed to see a lot of people wearing your shoes in the streets? And second, how do you feel about Mexico? Do you like it? Do you like the food? What is your favorite thing?
Well, I've always liked Mexico because of the coach. You know, that I went to practice down in just below Tijuana. What's the name of a town down there? But
Rosarito? No.
yeah, it was right by the water, and with my coach, and a lot of the players there. This one player, Joaquin Lomeo, came to USC, where I came to school at the same time, and as freshmen we couldn't play on the varsity, so he and I played every single day, and I got to know him well. Then we had Marcelo Lara, who was another good player that came a couple years later, and so I've known a lot of Mexicans over the years, and Rafael Osuna, who won the Nationals, I lost to him at Wimbledon the very first time I played there. He won Wimbledon doubles with Dennis Ralston, who also went to USC. So I had a relationship there. I played here in Davis Cup in 1972, and then I played here in another tournament in Mexico City, but I've been in Cabo San Lucas a few times recently, in the last 10 years. But I haven't been here since middle of 70s. So it's grown dramatically.
Yes.
I haven't seen very much of it, but I've always liked Mexico.
And Mexico loves you,
Mexico
Mr.
loves
Stan
you.
Smith.
As
Mr.
a
Shu.
player and as a tennis.
As a tennis player and as a sneaker.
tennis shoe, yes.
Ok, queremos agradecer de manera muy especial a Adidas, a la gente que pudo hacer esto posible, y al señor Mr. Stan Smith. Remember, he's not a shoe, he's a person, an athlete, sí,
And he
championship
has a
winner.
documentary, and
author.
has a book, and a lot of things.
And 4 children and 17 grandchildren.
Check it out, ¿sí?
Nada más. Nada más. 4 hijos y 7 nietos.
Carnales, muchísimas gracias. Nos vemos en la próxima.
Los
Peace.
queremos mucho.